Yep, it's going.
So our topic was mythology, and we broke it down into different sections, and we each did a different section, and we kind of covered the different sections in a format using sort of alphabet books, and so, not the quotes, we don't like the quotes. So each of the sections is sort of its own book, and then we organize the things in alphabetical order. So the first one is the Book of Gods. And we talked about sort of the main gods that, you know, most often, obviously there's a lot of different gods, but the ones that most often appear in things we would read. So first we have Aphrodite, and she also is known as Venus by her Roman name, and she's the goddess of love, and it was told that she is born from the sea foam, and it can also be from like another story that some of us learned in our classical humanities class, from like when Kronos was castrated and then stuff was thrown into the sea, and then that happened. So that was part of that. But anyway, she was married to Hephaestus, who was the craftsman god, and he was sort of very, you know, she's the goddess of love and beauty, and Hephaestus is the kind of this, yeah, sort of all
he's ugly.
ugly, yeah, he's an ugly sort of strange match, I guess you could say, for Aphrodite. So there's a lot of different conflicts that have to do with love, and like the Trojan War, that's sort of blamed on her because she made Paris fall in love with Helen. So that's Aphrodite. Next we have Apollo, who is the son of Zeus, and he's the twin to Leto and Artemis, and he's the god of light and truth, and the master of like poetry and music, so he often has a lyre with him. He also is the god of archery, so he has his bow and arrows with him, usually wherever you see Apollo. Athena is known by her Roman name Minerva, and she is the goddess of wisdom, and she is also the goddess of purity, so she lives a chaste life. And she was sort of the story of Athena. She was born from Zeus's head, like a fully grown woman, and she was already in like her armor. So she's kind of, in fact, she was born from his head, it's like wisdom, and she's the goddess of wisdom, and she's fully grown, so that's kind of cool. Ares is also known as Mars by his Roman name, and he is the god of war. And he's kind of unpopular amongst the gods because he's always sort of angry and fighting and causing these bloody battles. And it can be like, people think that he's sort of like this because he's actually sort of unconfident with himself or whatever. He's like very vain, but he just goes about bullying everyone else to gain confidence for himself. So Cronus is, it's sort of, I don't know if you can see the picture, but it's of him eating a child, which is sort of graphic, but sort of the main thing about Cronus is that he would eat, well, he was married to Rhea, and he would eat all of his kids, and Zeus was one of his children, and Rhea was able to hide Zeus from him, and obviously Zeus, we know, was like being alive, and he is the one who, well, he was hidden from his father, and then he defeated his father. So Kronos was in the first generation of Titans. He was born from Gaia and Uranus, and then he was then defeated by his children once they were released from inside of him, or he ate them.
He was eating them because there was a prophecy that one of them was going to throw him over. He was going to have greed, not just because he likes to, eat kids.
So he wanted to keep power for himself. So yes, and then his Roman name is Saturn. So you kind of would know these people by both. So Hades is the god of the underworld, and he's also, he's the brother of Zeus and Poseidon, and they're sort of like the three main gods that you would think of, and Zeus is kind of, Zeus would be the most powerful, and then Poseidon a little underneath, and then Hades is sort of like the bad one of them, but he's still very powerful. And I guess, would you say, like, earthquakes and stuff, he's like angry, you know, he's from down underneath the rumble of the earth. Hera, she is Zeus's wife and his sister, which is sort of strange, but the gods were totally into that type of thing. So she was the goddess of women and of marriage, so she's like very feminine. She was very, well, Zeus obviously had many different wives and different,
Affairs.
yes, different relationships. So she was often said to be jealous of him and his infidelity to her. Hermes, who earlier this year I got to dress up as in one of our classical humanities things, is the god of, he's the messenger god. And so he has the little like wings on his ankles and he flies around like that. And he's very quick and cunning and is also, he's a master thief, so he, I don't know if it's the god of thieves, not thieves necessarily, but he's often caught stealing things. And he is, he leads the dead from Earth to the underworld, like when they make that journey. That's Hermes. And then Poseidon, who, like I said, is Zeus's brother and sort of right up there in the top 3 gods. He is the god of the sea, and he sort of controls all of the oceans and water in general. So when there's like a big storm or whatever, it's said because Poseidon is angry that that's happening. And he is known as Neptune, also is his Roman name. Then the last god that we included was Prometheus, who Katie's going to talk about later on as well. But he was one of the Titans, and when Zeus battled against Kronos to try to defeat the Titans, Prometheus is the only one that sided with Zeus. But then he also sort of helped humans along the way and like did things with them that he wasn't supposed to do. So he was punished by Zeus for doing that, and Katie talked more about the story, but he was tied to a rock or chained there, and birds would eat him.
They eat his liver and go back. Yeah. Didn't he bring fire? Sorry, didn't just forget.
Yes. Oh yes. So wait.
It's been almost 10 minutes.
All right. So Poseidon, we have this food stuff. So afterwards we brought goldfish because of Poseidon and the sea. So each of our foods you'll see has something to do with that. So those are the gods that we talked about.
Okay, and I did heroes and monsters from mythology. The first one, I forgot one about Odysseus. From the Odyssey. I think the most important thing to remember about him is his constant conflict with Poseidon, because he stabbed his son, the Cyclops, eye out, and Poseidon was really happy with that, and Poseidon made it really hard for him to get home. And he also, another memorable thing for him is when he was staying with the witch Circe, she turned all of his men into pigs, so just like resembling who they were on the inside, because they were really greedy. We have Hercules. He, despite what we know from the movie, he actually Hera caused him to go a little crazy and he killed his family. And he went around creating the 12 labors of Hercules, where he fought off a lot of monsters trying to redeem his crime for killing his family and his children. Oedipus, who you remember from earlier this year, who married his mother and killed his father without knowing so, and then stabbed out his eyes. And probably the most important thing to remember that is the crossroads that he meets his father at. Now monsters. Medusa, she was one of the 3 Gorgons who came from the earth, and she was beautiful and pure at one point, and she swore herself to Athena to be a virgin, and she met and fell in love with Poseidon, and she broke her vows, and Athena wasn't happy with that, so she turned her hair to snakes and turned her into that punishment, and she kind of roamed around, and that's when she became evil. So she had a fall from, she's almost like a fallen angel. And the Minotaur, he is the beast that they would send 7 men and 7 women to as a sacrifice each year, and Theseus decided that was enough, and he volunteered to go fight the beast, and he ended up slaying it. And on the return home, he was supposed to put up a flag to let his father know that he had slain the Minotaur, and he forgot to do that, and so as he was pulling into the harbor, his father jumped off a cliff and killed himself because he thought Theseus had died. So it's kind of just a tragic story all around. And the Sphinx, this was also from Oedipus, was guarding the kingdom, and the only way to defeat the Sphinx was to beat the riddle, and the Sphinx kind of kills itself afterwards. So Oedipus was the one that defeated the Sphinx is therefore the deliverer for that. And that is,
Okay, so now we have the Book of Fables, and these are kind of the most well-known fables, the most famous ones. So first, there's Belling the Cat. I'm not gonna read it because you guys can read it later. But the moral lesson to take from the story is it is one thing to say that something should be done, but quite a different matter to do it. So, yeah. And then we have the Crow and the Pitcher. And the moral lesson from that story is, in a pinch, a good use of our wits may help us out. So, yeah. Next is the Dog and his reflection. And this dog, he was carrying a bridge, and he was carrying a bone, and he went over a bridge and looked in the water, and he thought that his reflection was a different dog with a bigger bone than he had. So he's kind of greedy. So the moral lesson from that story is it is very foolish to be greedy. And the Gnat and the Bull. The moral lesson from that is we are often of greater importance in our own eyes than in the eyes of our neighbor, and the smaller the mind, the greater the conceit. And the story was just Gnat sat on this bull's horns, and he didn't know that it was there, and then the Gnat was like, yeah, I gotta go now. And the Fox and the Grapes. This story, he saw grapes, but he couldn't reach them, and he tried really hard to get them, but he never could, so then he was really mad. And the moral lesson is there are many who pretend to despise and belittle that which is beyond their reach.
Are these all in Aesop's fables or some?
I think they're all Aesop's fables.
Because I know, in the play, this was one of the ones in it.
the dog and the bone was in it as well.
That's why I have grapes for that. And Two Travelers and a Bear. So the moral lesson from this one is misfortune is a test of true friendship. And that's why I have gummy bears too, very nice. And the last fable I have is The Young Crab and His Mother. And the moral lesson from that is do not tell others how to act unless you can set a good example. Yeah, and you guys can read that later because I'm sharing these with you.
Okay, so this is the book of specific myths and objects that can be found in the myths. Okay, so the first one is the adamantine sickle, and there are several instances where sickles are used in myths, but these are the three most famous uses. Obviously, the most famous is when Uranus is castrated by Cronos, but then Medusa was also killed by a sickle, and Zeus used one when he defeated Typhoon. So, it's a sickle. And then this is kind of like the creation story. And first there was only chaos, but basically chaos but kind of lonely. So he created the sky and the earth, and they were Gaia and whatnot. And Demeter and Persephone. Demeter is kind of like the goddess of the grain, so she kind of represents the seasons. It's the story of how the seasons came to be. And Persephone was kidnapped by Hades, and Demeter got really sad. And when she's really sad, it's winter. But since you can't really have an eternal winter, wouldn't think about that living outside. But so she kind of talked to Hades, and Persephone was allowed outside during half the year, and that's when it's spring and summer. But then it slowly gets back into winter when she has to go back into the underworld.
And we have the apples, right? Because of
Yeah.
we cut up apples with a lovely butter knife in order to represent the pomegranate, because those two are kind of used interchangeably.
Yes. And then the giants, they were the these were the sons of Gaia, and they tried to overthrow Zeus, so they were imprisoned, but Hercules, during one of his 12 acts, defeated them. But they were also important in the Odyssey as well. We also talked about this, but basically, we already talked about that. Now the Melia, these are Gaia's children, and they were a sisterhood of ash trees, and they were kind of like the mothers of the bronze race, which was known for being terrible and strong. So they're important in that sense.
3 minutes, you guys.
3 minutes.
Okay, the Oceanids were sea nymphs, and in our like own mythology, we have like mermaids and whatnot, and these were like the reasons where they came from. So this is kind of like their origin story. And the Odyssey, and it's kind of the story of Odysseus and his journey home, and it took them 10 years to get back, kind of like what Alex said, because he angered the gods. And these are just kind of some of the people and the monsters that he defeated along the way. And there are 12 Olympians, and they gained control after overthrowing the Titans, and we already kind of talked about those as well, but they're important to know. Orpheus, his wife died, and he really wanted to like see her again, so he went down to the underworld to convince Hades to let her go, and he plays his harp with him, and Hades really liked his music, so he said that he would return the wife only if he made it up out of the underworld without looking back. Of course she looked back, and then his wife goes back to the underworld forever, and he notices here again. So Pandora's jar. Pandora opened this jar that was full of misfortune because she was really curious, and she let out all the misfortunes of the world. And so this is kind of a story of how women are kind of like the bringers of all evil, and they can't be trusted with power or anything because, you know, they'll just corrupt everything. And she closes the jar before hope can escape, so this is also why, like, there's no kind of hope in the world anymore. So.
Which we know is not true, because women are...
Yeah, but in the story, okay. So Prometheus is thought to be the creator of humans, creating them out of clay. But he brought fire to mankind, and so he was tied to a rock and had his liver eaten out every day. And then it grow back and then eaten again and again, and that was his punishment. So.
And that's why.
That's why we have these sour red things. Fire. Yep. And then the Titanomachy was a 10-year-long battle between the Titans and the Olympians, and you know the Olympians won, and they were the rulers after this battle. And then the Trojan War started when Helen was kidnapped and taken to Troy. She was known as the face that sailed 1,000 ships because everybody kind of went to battle because of her, and like the gods and goddesses, like Aphrodite, for example, is kind of thought to be part of the cause for this one. And the last slide that we have is the underworld, and it's where people went when they died. And the Elysian fields were where the heroes went, and Tartarus were where like the bad people, like criminals, would go. And then but everybody else would kind of be stuck in the fields to roam forever. And a lot of heroes visited